Good morning. This is Angel. This is episode 8 of Saying Goodbye, a podcast by Angel. And I'm excited to continue moving on. I'm excited for the good things or the tough things to start happening in my life. So in the beginning and in the end, I like to unpack a little bit of what we're doing. And what I'm doing is sharing my life story, sharing about my trials and tribulations and what I've been through and what I went through to get to where I'm at today, to hopefully inspire someone to share where they're at, to talk about what they're going through before they harm themselves, to want to come up out the rain from drug addiction, or to share about the abuse they've been through in their lives that have kept them, sort of like in a cell in jail, feeling like, you're the only one suffering and nobody understands. And that can't be the furthest thing from the truth, because a lot of us suffer in silence. A lot of us don't want to tell our story because we're afraid nobody's going to understand, or people are going to judge, or they won't believe you. And, at this point, when you look at how much time has passed, when you look at what hasn't happened and what has happened in your life, I think that will tell you, and it will let you know that something needs to happen. There needs to be a shift. No matter how small a shift is, it's still a shift in a better direction. A lot of times in my life, I've taken 20 steps back, and it has pushed me back so far. I thought I would never regain my footing to move forward. And every day I just continued to move forward. There was nothing else that I could do. Nobody was really forcing me to do anything. It wasn't something that people said, either you change your life, or I'm not going to talk to you, or I'm not going to be your friend, or I'm not going to give you a roof over your head. It wasn't anything like that. It was just nobody was there. Right? It was only God, myself, and I. And at this point, I believe I was 33 years old, and I decided, when God gave me the opportunity to not drink alcohol, to not consume it, I understood, and I had that aha moment, and I had the faith. I was waiting for something to happen, but I was still trying to I was making changes. I was making little changes in my life. Wherever I could change, I was changing. And it came to a point where, I had one day clean, right? It was November 24th, 2012. And that was my I already had 24 hours. I had stopped on the 23rd of November. And it was an amazing gift, just to have one day. And I remember how grateful I was just to have 24 hours without any drugs, without any alcohol. And I didn't know where it was going to take me. And I just knew that 24 hours was a miracle. It was a miracle that I even made it that far. It was a miracle that I was even willing to accept the fact that this could be my new life. This could be something different for me. It could be, I started to dream again. I started to think of a better life for the first time in a long time since I was a kid. I actually started thinking about the future. I wanted to make plans. It was so much, coming to me at once, because even with just 24 hours, if you're an addict, you know that if you just have 24 hours without putting any substance in your body, it is the most wonderful thing to feel that clarity, to feel that fog lift. You know, so I get to this point where I've been praying for 2 years, and you know, I'm understanding that my brother's gone. He's never coming back. And now I go on this journey that nobody goes on. I'm going on a journey that nobody gives a shit to go on. Nobody wants to be clean. Nobody wants to stop drinking. Nobody wants to stop getting high. Nobody. People want to numb out. Nobody want to deal with reality. At least in a lot of cases around the people that I was, that I was surrounded by, people, we were all just, partying and living our lives and doing the things that we learned growing up. And the things that we learned, the things that we adopted. But I just wanted to get clean for several reasons. For one, I wanted a better connection with God. I just felt like every time I put substances in my body, I just lost that connection, right, to my higher power. And then I lost that connection to angel. I lost that self-respect, that I just gained loneliness, unworthiness. I just didn't feel good for anything, for anybody. And I didn't want to feel that anymore. So then we continue, right? We continue on from where I started to make meetings. I remember, getting my first 30 days clean. Like going to meetings every day. They told me, to do these things. And, all I had to do was listen, take the cotton out of my ears and put it in my mouth so I could shut up and just listen to what was being asked of me. And that if I followed a particular road, that I could have years clean. I didn't see it, but at this point, I didn't have no other option. I didn't have anything. I just had my faith in God. And that has brought me to where I was at. And then I was listening to other people that got high, that had years. And I'm like, yeah, right, you don't got no damn years. That's crazy. You look crazy. Yeah. And I just, I really didn't buy into it too much, but I did buy into the fact that I believe in God and I know what took place in my life and the miracle that happened to me and for me. And I continue going to meetings, and things started to change in my life. A lot of people, I stopped hanging out with a lot of the people that I was hanging out with. And it wasn't because there was any love lost or anything like that. It was just that things started to change in my life. And in order for me to make a change, I just couldn't keep doing the same things that I've always done. I couldn't keep hanging out in the places where I got high. I couldn't keep hanging around the people that I was drinking with. It just wasn't a recipe for success. There wasn't anything that was going to happen that was going to be good for me there. And then before I actually was able to acquire some clean time, I went and I wanted to do something. I wanted to fix things because I had previously went to school for a lot of things, let me tell you. I went to school for 20 or 30 different things. And a lot of them I finished. Some of them I didn't. And the guys used to laugh at me and said, damn, bro, you go to school more than a scholar. And I did. I wanted to see what I liked. I wanted to see what I didn't like. And I did this while I was getting high. I was doing these things. I always had like a drive inside of me that I wanted to be different. I wanted to do something different. And I wind up taking a KSAC training, credential alcohol and substance abuse training. It was a KSAC-T, and I did all them things, and I met a wonderful human being, what wind up being, the love of my life. And it was incredible that while I was in KSAC training, I was learning about my drug addiction. I was learning about who I was. I was learning about all these things. And when I started going like to these places where they would tell you to go for like an internship, I seen the dysfunction, and I came to the realization that I can't fix people. And that pissed me off because people just don't listen. I don't listen. I know I don't listen. And I was like, oh, hell no, I can't do this shit. I can't go and go into these places and think that I'm going to help people with addiction issues. I'm struggling with my own. And what wound up happening is that I was turned off by it, but I completed it. So I completed the KSAC training. I did all this schooling, took all these classes, learned all these things about myself and about my addiction. And that actually enlightened me so much. I wind up not getting high anymore. And I had all this information, but I still always had the urge to fix things. So in 2012, I believe it was the end of the year, in 2012 or the beginning, somewhere around there, I had went to TCI, Technical Career Institute. It was on 31st and 8th, and in Manhattan. And it was I wanted to go to school for like fixing boilers or air conditions. I knew something. I just wanted to do some type of work like that. And I didn't know what it entailed. It was a lot of work, So I wind up signing up, right? I wind up signing up for school in 2000. I think I went and I checked it in 2012, and then in 2013, when I finally got clean and I trusted myself, and I said, all right, now I think I had 30 days. And then I had like 30 days clean, and I was like, I'm never turning back. This is it. And I've said this plenty of times in my life. For whatever reason, this time, with the fact that I was clean, there was a lot of conviction, right? I didn't have no alcohol. I didn't have no drugs in my system, nothing to deter me from the fact that I could change, that I could do whatever, whatever I wanted to do or whatever I needed to do in order to get to where I had to go. It was a huge thing for me to have a couple of weeks clean. And I was, people in the program that I was attending, they like, oh, you're on a pink cloud, man. You like, soon that cloud is going to come down. And for me, for a long time, it didn't. It was a miracle that I was clean. It was a miracle that I was pursuing school. Oh, man. So I wound up signing up for school. And I started my classes. I started my classes in January of 2013. I went to school for HVAC, for heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration. And I signed up. I think I only had like 35 days clean. And I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna, if anybody knows me, I'm an extremist. If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it all the way, or I'm not doing it at all. And I do everything to the extreme. And in this aspect, my brain started to like turn, and I said, all right, since I did everything to the extreme, I did everything extremely wrong when I was on alcohol and drugs, well, I'm going to do this to the extreme as well. So I had 35 days clean. I'm in school. I'm signing up. I'm signing my life away. You're taking all these loans. You're doing all these things. And, I remember having a moment to myself waiting for one of these case managers to come out and talk to me. And I was like, yeah, this is it, Angel. You're going to be the first one to go to college. You're going to be the first one to change the course of your life and change everything for the kids that you have that are coming after you. This is where you get to make the real change, where you change yourself. And when I went up to sign for school, there was nobody there with me. I went by myself. I signed my papers, I signed my loans, I did everything by myself. And it was a beautiful thing. And now I'm signing up for school. I'm doing, I signed up for classes starting in January, and I was like working a little part-time job, and the job said that they would work with me. At least the supervisor said that he would work with me no matter what. And when I went to the job and I gave him my class schedule, they were like, oh yeah, we're not working with that schedule. And they completely tried to shut me down. And I quit the job. I was like, yeah, well, I guess I'm not going back to this job. And I just I never went back to the job. And it was over, and I was without a job, full-time student, freshly out of drug addiction, I think I had like 70 days clean when I started my first class. And I was still burping beer. I was still waking up. I was having dreams of oh man, I got high. I'm not gonna make it to class. I was having nightmares, all types of stuff that I was going through, and come to find out that's pretty normal for someone when they stop getting high. And I wind up starting college in TCI in 2013, and I quit my job. I didn't have any funds to go back and forth. I wind up getting welfare, getting food stamps, getting rent checks, and the main thing that I really wanted to get was that they give you an unlimited Metro card. Like, what do I got to lose, man? Like, I did everything wrong, and now I was going to follow the system. And I was going to use the system to help me propel myself forward. And I wasn't embarrassed. I wasn't embarrassed by any of it. I didn't really care what people thought. I didn't care what anybody had to say. All it was is that I was just like focused. I was focused on going to school, bettering my life, getting a career. Not getting high was the first thing. First it was God, then it was not getting high, and then it was school to better myself, so I could get a good paying, decent paying job, so that I could be in my kids' lives. Like all of these things, they were like monumental things in my life, and I was juggling all of them at the same time, because I was the prince of chaos. I love chaos. I thrive in chaos. At least that's what I believe. And in this case, it started working out for me in the beginning. I started going to class. I started taking like tutoring classes because I didn't know. Let me tell you, first of all, when you consider the fact that you stop getting high is a miracle. Just that on its own, right? All right, so I stopped. I stopped getting high. God is in my heart. It's just like it's something that you don't hear about in the street, right? You know, ain't nobody trying to hear that. And I do that. Then I sign up for college. Then I gotta humble myself, go get online and get on welfare. And I'm doing all of this to, with a projection of that one day I'm gonna be in my kids' life, in their lives. Oh man, it was just, like that. That is a miracle. So I'm doing all of that, but in the beginning, in college, they send you to take an exam, to see if you're competent to go to these classes, to see if they're going to put you like in these other classes that are going to be remedial, to sort of like get you prepped for college courses. And it's just a way to definitely to get more money, get more classes, whatever. It's a business, right? We understand what college is. And I got my GED, I think in 2001. Here we are in 2013 or 2012, the end of 2012. I ain't studied nothing since then. And then before that, I finished school, like I went up to the 9th grade in high school. I didn't 9th, 10th, man, I didn't study anything. So I go and I take this exam, entry exam for college. Tell me how they sit me down and they start talking to me about my classes, and I'm like, oh man, I done failed all of this. I didn't think I passed any of it because I just did the test. I was just trying to keep my head on a swivel, and I was just thinking like, yeah, whatever. This is just the rite of passage. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna take this exam and let the chips fall where they may. If I gotta do my remedial classes, then whatever. I'm not gonna let this stop me from where I need to go. I'm not gonna let this. I'm not gonna be deterred by it. I go and I take the exam. It was like 2 hours. So I take the exam for 2 hours, and then when I go to sit with the case manager, the case manager is like, well, Mr. Rivera, you passed all the classes, so we're gonna start you on regular college. Now, I wanted to run a lap or two around the building because I'm saying to myself, how in the hell, straight off, not getting high no more, like a couple weeks clean, going through not really knowing where I was gonna live, basically homeless, signing up for college, haven't been to school in over 18, 19 years since high school. Or no, like not 18, 19. It was like since I was like 15. I was 30. Yeah, like 18 years. And then I got a GED somewhere in between there, and I studied for like 4 weeks before I got my GED. I studied for 4 weeks. I got my GED. That was it. And that was all the schooling I had. And like, I'm talking about a kid that learned to read in the 3rd grade. Fresh out the streets, straight out of foster care. And I went and I took this college exam and I passed it. It was one of the most incredible moments of my life. I was like, I thought that I won like a prize. I was like, oh man, I passed this exam. It just really made me feel positive. It made me feel good. I was like, oh man, it's moving in the right direction. And long lines, got into school, went to my first classes, and I was there with 18-year-old kids. They all smell like weed. Some were serious, some were not. I got gray hair. I'm sitting in the front of the class because I know that if I hang out in the back, I ain't getting shit done. So I'm sitting in the front of the class, every class, all the classes, to do what I gotta do to, to get this training, to start working, to start doing all these things to live a better life, to to progress, to just be a better human being, and to be a productive member of society, to be a part of community, to become a father again, to just feel good about the person I see in the mirror. Like, I know for myself, I used to look in the mirror and I just felt so disappointed for so long. I just felt like I wasn't worth much, and if I was worth anything, it was just for what I could provide. And I fed myself that for a long time, because depending on where I was at, it was because of what I could do, what I can provide, or because I was going to do a favor or something in that nature. It wasn't for anything else. Obviously, a lot of people let me stay over their house. I knew it was temporary. I knew they were just helping me get along. And there's so many people that are a part of my story, that are a part of why I'm still alive, why I'm still here, how I'm here to tell my story, and it's nothing short of a miracle. These things that started to happen in my life, I couldn't, so I started college homeless. I didn't have no place to live. I didn't have no keys. I didn't have a door that I opened where I felt safe. I've never had that in my life. I never had like my own keys up to this point, like my own key to a door that I can open and that I could say that's mine because I'm paying all the bills and I'm doing all these things. None of that stuff was true in my life. And I didn't let none of that stop me from going to sign up for school and pushing forward and knowing that this is the direction. This was the direction that I was being led to go on this path. And I didn't know if any of it was going to work. But I know that if I would have stood my ass still where I was at, nothing was going to change. And people would have accepted me the way that I was because we were all broken and it's okay. And there were some people that could function and get up and go to work every day and still do those things. And I just wasn't one of those people. I wasn't. And now I'm in college. I'm with these young kids. And it was a fun experience. And while I was in college, I signed up for an internship. I wound up doing I was working for a sales department in a big company selling HVAC parts, and I knew right off the bat I didn't really care what they were getting paid. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be in an office. I wanted to be outside. I wanted to, sort of roam around, and I loved the trades. I loved the bare buildings, working on things, arguing, doing all this stuff that goes on in the trades when you're in these buildings. And I wanted to do that. So I wound up, while I was in college, I did 2 full semesters during the day. And then, you can't stay on that welfare stuff too long. And because they were like, oh, now you got to work for us helping you. And I was like, yeah, I'm not working for that. If I do that type of work and I gotta switch my classes, might as well I just get a job during the day and then I go to school at night. You know, and I remember like through all of that, like even when I met my partner, she must have thought, what the hell is wrong with this dude? And like, what is going on with him? Because when we met, we used to hang out and drink, and I would smoke and all this stuff, and we would have fun. And then one day to the next, I was like, yeah, I'm not drinking anymore. And I'm over here going to meetings, and I'm over here like being responsible, and I'm like going to college, and while I'm homeless, and my partner was she was the first person to like give me a set of keys to a place to live. And I remember that I was staying in the shelter for a little bit because I didn't want to stay where I was at. And it just wasn't working out because I just couldn't be responsible and stay in those places. And I remember that she was just starting out herself. And she knew I was staying in the shelter, and she told me to come over one day and help her, to move in. And we slept on an air mattress on the floor. And it was, like the best feeling. It was dope. I got to hang out with her. We got to chill. And, she asked me, to stay with her. And I was like, I couldn't, not that I couldn't believe it, I just was appreciative, and I just didn't know how to handle that. I didn't understand why she was being nice, and because I really didn't think much of myself. There was so much work that I haven't done, even going to like these meetings and even having clean time. There was so much stuff that, as much as I didn't know what was waiting for me around the corner when I was growing up, and as I started to mature and I started hitting my teenage years, I didn't know the whirlwind of shit that was there to like thrash my ass in life. And I wasn't aware of the storm. And now things are starting to change, and they're changing for the better, and I had no idea of what was waiting for me. The chaos of of changing, my whole life. Excuse me. You're talking about decades of brokenness and all these curses you believe in your life, and all these shortcomings, and just not believing that you're not enough. You go and you not only stop abusing drugs, you begin first to have faith with God and building a relationship, and God delivers and does something miraculous in your life. And that miracle alone was something that I will take with me until the day that I no longer breathe. And to have that miracle happen, to be drug free, to start college, go to welfare, do whatever I needed to do to get by, working all these little small side jobs and all this crap, and then having, a woman say, come on, I know you don't have anything. You ain't got a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. And then still open their doors and say, come on, it's all right, come with me. You're going to be okay. It was It was an incredible thing. And, it was, I appreciate everything that you have done for me. And for holding me down when I didn't have anything. Thank you. I love you. And, I'm getting to like the struggling part. Sometimes when I think of the things that I've acquired while I've been clean and while I've been on this journey, honestly, I think back and I don't know, sometimes I think I had more fun when I was drinking and hanging out or anything like that, but I don't think it's that. It's not that I have more fun because the weight, like waking up to the aftermath of the torment of addiction and drug abuse and all that stuff. Waking up the next day is not fun. There was just so much fun in being around people and just laughing and cracking jokes, and there was no judgment. We all didn't have much, and we all shared it. And I think that on this road that I began to travel on, because it took me in a different direction, I had to leave all of that behind, and I just didn't understand that I was missing something, and I was missing the community. I was missing the friendship. I was missing the hanging out and doing those things. But when I hung out, I didn't hang out responsibly. When I hung out, I didn't hang out with a healthy crowd. I just hung out with people that were like drinking, partying, clubbing, going to bars, just standing in the corner hustling, and that was the company I kept, and I loved those people. I don't give a shit. I could see those people today, and I wouldn't act like I don't know who they are, or like they're not a part of my life. I go hug them, show them love. I chill for a little bit, then I get my ass out of there before I wind up getting snatched up for something I didn't do. So, I just remember those days, and I miss those days. And I still get those days when I go back, when I go to block parties, or I go to a barbecue, or I go to the beach and I do things like that. I get to see my friends, and I get to show them love, and I get to bring something to the barbecue. I don't just come to eat for free. And it's a beautiful thing to break bread with people like that. And like now, I get to not be homeless anymore. I get to have a space of my own to share it with my significant other. And, unfortunately, when you come from the places that I have come from, there's not much loyalty there. There's not much of any principle that you live in your life. There's no traditions, right? There's no boundaries. There's no healthy boundaries. There's boundaries of, if you do that, I'll stab you, I'll shoot your ass, I'll knock your ass out. Those boundaries were there, but I didn't have healthy boundaries, and it sucked that I just really didn't know how to appreciate a lot of the good things that were happening in my life. And still, you have that baggage. You have all this stuff that's still, you carrying throughout your life. And it follows you. It follows you. Because to this day, I went and I got clean, and I'm in college, and I'm the first one doing it in my family, and I find this wonderful woman that opens her arms and her life to me, And all these good things are happening, but I still have all this damage that I haven't dealt with, that I didn't understand how to deal with it. And, I slowed down with making the meetings because now everything good is happening in my life. And there was a lot of things happening. I go and I get my job I go to school at night so that I could work during the day. Now the money's coming in and things are starting to get better. I'm not getting high. I'm working a job, and eventually I wind up getting a job with one of the fellas from the neighborhood, Kevin. I appreciate the opportunity, my brother, that you gave me. And I went and I started making chump change. But it was everything that I wanted. It was exactly where I started from, where I was working in that other job that I left before I started school. I started right there. That was my base point. So now I'm working full time. I'm going to school at night. And, the year's coming to a close, and I finished so many classes. Going to school during the day, I did 4 classes, 5 classes. And one semester I did 6 classes. I think I wound up doing 3 semesters or 2 semesters like that. Like, so many classes that when I started working, I had like 3 classes left. And I did one semester, I did 2 classes, and then my final semester, I only did 1 class. And, I wind up completing college, and I got all my credits that I needed. It was an incredible thing. So I'm gonna stop there because there's some things that happened that I really want to get into and that I really want to unpack. Before I completed, things started happening, and there's a backstory to that. And I really want to share that because it's an important part of my life. Now, I told you guys before, if anybody wanted to reach out, you can send me messages here. Send me messages at my Gmail account, ANG3LRIV3RA78 @gmail. And sooner or later, I'm going to learn how to put that on the bottom of the screen. Hopefully by next episode, I'll get that set up. I'll get everything put together. And I could hopefully put this on a lot of platforms and, get people to, start coming to see and hopefully get some traffic on people wanting to get help and wanting to change or needing some direction or just needing an ear, needing somebody to talk to. And I encourage anybody that that's even considering making a change. It's not about making a full change. Changes take time. And it's just, what do you want in your life? And, you can have that. If you've been watching, you know how far I've come. You know where I've come from. I have nothing to hide. I'm not this saint. I'm not better than anybody. And I would never try to be. I'm just someone trying to give back and show love and help anybody that I can in my process of, this process called life, this process of growth, this process of love, this process of God. I look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. And man, this one went pretty fast. Good things are happening, so I'm excited to share that with you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. God bless you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.